You know that feeling when your whole life is about to change, but you don't even know it yet? That was exactly how Amaka Okafor felt the first day she stepped into Lagos State University. Just 18, fresh from Enugu, full of hope and very naive. She wore her mother's old church skirt and a plain white top. Her eyes sparkled with dreams, but campus life had other plans. It started right from the hostel gate. As Amaka dragged her box across the corridor, a loud voice called out, "Babe, you dey carry box like village girl oh." It was Tai Johnson, the queen of the hostel. Skin glowing, lashes like broomstick, and her hips swaying like she owned the ground. She laughed, walked over, and said, "You must be a fresher. I'm your new roommate." That was the beginning. Tai took Amaka under her wing. She showed her how to dress, walk, speak, and most importantly, how to get things. And by things, she meant attention, money, gifts, even grades. Amaka's transformation was quick. Short gowns replaced long skirts. Wigs replaced headscarves. And suddenly, boys couldn't stop staring. But Tai had one warning: never fall in love. These men are for survival, not romance. Amaka nodded, but in her heart, she didn't know if she could follow that rule. Especially after she met Kunal, tall, dark, final-year student with a car and that slow smile that made her knees weak. And then there was Professor Aide, charming, powerful, and dangerous. This was just the beginning of a story that would spiral out of control. Her diary would one day tell it all, but for now, Amaka was simply a freshman who had no idea what was coming next. They say university is where you find yourself, but for Amaka, it was where she lost herself first. When Amaka first stepped into Tai's room, she was just a shy girl with oversized skirts, awkward glasses, and braided hair that still smelt of home. But Tai was fire. She was the definition of hot girl, always with lashes on point, nails that clicked like heels, and a phone that never stopped ringing. It didn't take long before Tai looked Amaka over one evening and said, "Babe, if you WN survive for this Lagos campus, you gats upgrade. All these your village girl vibes won't get you anywhere." Within 2 weeks, Amaka was unrecognizable. Her hair was now Peruvian bone straight. Her clothes, tight, short, and screaming for attention. Her curves, which she used to hide, now became her superpower. She began to walk like she owned the school gates. Boys noticed. Girls whispered. Tai taught her everything: how to pose for snaps, how to use the right filters, how to ask for urgent 2K without looking desperate. And most importantly, how to spot Lagos big men. Those older men with money and a soft spot for pretty young girls. Amaka's DMs started blowing up. But one message stood out, from Professor Ediwale Balogun, her course advisor. It started with compliments during lectures. Then, he began calling her to his office for extra coaching. But we all know what that means. She didn't tell Tai at first, until one night, she broke down in tears. Tai only laughed. "Babe, you've arrived. Just make sure you gain from it. School no be by suffer head." Amaka was torn. But the new lifestyle, it was addictive. New phones, new wigs, taxi rides only. No more struggling for campus shuttle. But deep down, the little Enugu girl in her was screaming. But Amaka wasn't broken. She was determined. With support from her aunt in Port Harcourt, Amaka enrolled at Rivers State University under her middle name, Chisholm. No one there knew her past. She promised herself no distractions, no shortcuts, no men. Just books. At first, it was hard. She missed the flashy life, the gifts, the parties, the attention. Sometimes, at night, she would stare at her old Instagram posts and remember how it all felt. But when she looked at her suspended transcript and thought about her parents' disappointment, she'd close her phone and pick up her books. Amaka started attending lectures early, joined a women's fellowship, and even volunteered at a youth mentorship group. Slowly, she began to rebuild her confidence, not from makeup and men, but from purpose. She avoided the campus cliques. When rich boys in Ben's cars pulled up, she smiled politely and walked on. The new Amaka, Chisholm, was focused. One day after class, as she sat quietly under a mango tree reading, a soft voice called her name. She looked up and saw Kunal. He looked surprised, older, more mature. "Amaka!" She froze. "Is it really you?" Her heart raced. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially not here. And just like that, the past and present began to collide. But this time, she was ready. Or so she thought. Not yet. It had been almost a year since Amaka left Lagos. The scandal had faded, but the pain still lingered. In a quiet town in Ogun State, she was now known simply as Ada. She kept her head down, focused on her books, and kept her circle small. No wigs, no lashes, just her natural self and her goals. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Amaka stepped into a small cafe near her new school. She just wanted to get out of the rain and grab a quick snack. But as she looked up from her table, her heart skipped a beat. Sitting across the room, sipping a smoothie and typing on a laptop, was Kunal Adebayo, the only guy who ever saw her beyond the makeup and Instagram filters. The last person she thought she'd ever see again. He looked up and saw her. "Amaka," he said, blinking in disbelief. She froze. For a moment, she considered running out. But instead, she smiled shyly and nodded. Kunal stood up, walked to her slowly, and pulled her into a gentle, wordless hug. They talked for hours. He had graduated and was now working with a tech startup in Lagos. He had come for a workshop in town. Coincidence? Fate? They didn't care. Over the next few weeks, Kunal visited often. He wasn't judgmental. He didn't ask for the full story. He just encouraged her, helped her with assignments, and reminded her of who she used to be. For the first time in a long while, Amaka laughed without pretending. With Kunal back in her life, she started to believe again that maybe, just maybe, her past didn't have to define her. Maybe this chapter could be different. And maybe this time, she wouldn't have to write it alone. It had been over a year since Amaka left her old life behind. She had changed her look, her name on social media, and even the way she walked. Lagos no longer knew her as the slay queen from her first university. She was now focused, quiet, and determined to get her degree without drama. But Lagos had a way of testing you when you least expected. It was a Friday evening. Amaka had just finished a presentation when her friend Lola invited her to a networking event on the island. At first, she hesitated, but Lola assured her it was just a chill event with creatives and professionals. Amaka went, dressed simply in jeans and a black top. That was where she met Chief Emeka Okoro, a powerful oil magnate in his late 50s, dressed in agbada and gold jewelry. His eyes were sharp. The moment he saw Amaka, he smiled like he'd seen something rare. "She reminds me of someone I used to know," he said. That night, Chief Okoro sent her a bouquet of N50,000 roses and a box of iPhones through his PA. The next day, his driver arrived outside Amaka's hostel with a brand new Benz and a note. "This is just a welcome gift. I want to take care of you." Temptation hit Amaka like a truck. Everything she had suffered through flashed back. The professor, the scandal, the shame, the silence. But here it was again, wealth, comfort, and power. All she had to do was say yes. She stared at the Benz. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't know what to do. Amaka sat by the window of her small hostel room in Abuja, staring at the bright city lights. Her phone buzzed. It was another message from Chief Okoro. "Just say yes. A brand new car and N2 million await you." Her heart pounded. The offer was tempting. She remembered the luxury, the designer clothes, the free trips, the VIP parties. She could have it all again, instantly. But something held her back. She glanced at her laptop screen, opened to her new blog, Diary of a Real Girl. It was raw, honest, and filled with her past stories, the mistakes, the pain, and the growth. Her last post had gone viral. Girls from different campuses were messaging her, thanking her for opening their eyes. It felt good. Real. Kunal's voice echoed in her mind. "You're not who you were, Marka. You're better now. Stronger." She thought of her parents, of Mema's tears when she got suspended, of her father's silence. And then, the second chance they gave her. She picked up her phone again, hovered over Chief Okoro's message, and hit delete. No regrets. That night, she posted a new blog entry titled, "Why I Said No." She shared how her past haunted her, how easy it was to fall back, and how she chose a new path. By morning, hundreds of shares. Girls called her brave. Some even called her their voice. Later that evening, she met Kunal at the cafe near campus. He looked at her with pride. "You chose the harder road," he said. "But the right one." Amaka smiled, sipping her juice. For the first time in a long time, she felt peace, not from a man's pocket, but from her own power. She had made her decision. And it was worth it. After all the drama, pain, and mistakes, Amaka stood tall, wiser, stronger. and no longer the girl who once chased fast life and fake love. Years had passed. The scandal was a memory now, but the lessons lived in her every day. Amaka had finished school with top grades. No shortcuts, no secrets, just hard work. She didn't let the past define her. Instead, she used it to fuel her future. Her blog, The Real Diary, had gone viral. Girls from all over Nigeria were reading her posts, some crying, some laughing, all relating. She wrote about dating rich men, falling for lies, battling shame, and finding herself again. She told it raw and real. No filters. Then one day, she got invited to speak at a girls' leadership summit in Abuja. Standing before hundreds of young girls, Amaka shared her truth. The crowd was silent, eyes wide, hearts open. I almost lost myself chasing things that don't last. But I found strength in the mess. And you can too, she said, her voice steady. Tai watched from the crowd, tears in her eyes. They hadn't spoken in years, but in that moment, healing began. After the event, a TV producer approached Amaka for a show deal. Her story was going national. As she walked off the stage, Kunal stood by the exit, waiting, with that same proud smile he wore years ago. Amaka had started as a freshman slay queen, but she ended as something greater, a woman with a voice, a purpose, and a past that couldn't break her. And just like that, the diary had a new chapter.